Hey guys, welcome to Now That's Debatable. This is your host, Fantastic Facade, and I am joined with my trusty co-host, Tribulate the Humanist. Today we're going to do a response video put out by Frank, Turek, and Cross-Examined. And we are going to be responding to it, just kind of taking down the argument. And with all respect to Frank Turek himself, this is not against him personally. This is against the arguments that are made in this video that we've seen regurgitated by countless other people. So just wanted to kind of explain why we think this isn't the best argument. And happens that we know somebody that knows somebody that knows somebody that knows Frank Turek and is going to try to get him on the show. So if that happens, you guys gotta tune in because that'll be dope. But with that in mind, Triple A, you ready to go ahead and tackle this video?
Yeah, I'm down. This first, I just wanted to preface it by saying that the way I first became acquainted with this video, it was through a Facebook post that I had made, and I got into an argument with a friendly argument, but we were going back and forth, and he directed me to this video. And so the post was about, I was just pointing out just some contradictions in Christians' reasoning about morality. Oftentimes they'll make the argument that killing babies is objectively immoral, like hence abortion is immoral. But also at the same time they'll argue that God can morally kill babies, which means it's not objectively immoral. It means it's subjectively immoral. So you're arguing for moral subjectivity. That was the argument that I was making. And you'll see in this video, that's kind of what Frank Turek is arguing. He's arguing for moral subjectivity. He doesn't think he is, but that's exactly what you're going to see.
Gotcha. And just to let everybody know, we're probably going to cut the video off a little short, and we're starting about a minute in just because there's some talking and chatter. The name of the video is God Immoral Because of the Atrocities Committed in the Old Testament? It was put out by Cross-Examined, which is the
Yes.
I forget the word I'm looking for, but it's Frank Turek's studio.
Yeah, I was answering the question, but yes, that makes him immoral. If you do immoral things, then yeah.
Yeah.
So
with that in mind, we're gonna go ahead and kick this off and get it started. AAA, as always, just let me know when you want to pause it or stop, and we'll pause it. You should be able to hear it, and we'll go from
also
there.
I wanted to say something, bro. We got an extra subscriber like within like the past 30 minutes. We got 180 subscribers right now.
Nice.
So whoever that was, you the man
or woman, but likely a man.
Oh, woman, yes, whoever. You're the YouTube
likely,
subscriber.
Very likely you're a man.
Yeah. Honestly, yeah. For our show,
yeah. Nice.
I think on the analytics it showed like 99% men.
Yeah. That's why I said it's very likely it's a man. Analytics say that you're very likely a man.
We're trying to work on that. Come on, ladies. Tune in.
Yeah. Like we sent some invites out to some female guests, in not necessarily hopes to just drive the female audience, but also because I think they had some really interesting views that I would enjoy discussing. We just haven't had any back and forth yet, so we're hoping that changes. But ladies, if you watch and you want to come on and have a discussion about something, reach out to us. Now that's debatableStream@gmail.com. So, without further ado, we're kicking off the video, and just let me know when to pause.
All right.
A question more of like a statement that you can respond to, but
okay.
You brought up a lot about morality, you know, in your lecture and everything, and also in some of the questions. But I've argued myself, and I've heard a lot of people also argue, that from a moral perspective, you can... Well, okay, I'll just start it with, like, you said that morality kind of points to God, right? Or that morality is from God or derived from God.
There's a standard beyond us to which our moral sentiments point.
Right, but a lot of people across the world, as well as myself in some ways, would say that on a moral level, looking at things like it would point away from God. Not because there's bad things that happen or whatever, but you can look at like the...
actually just want to pause real quick because it's really interesting so far. So Frank Turek, who's responding to this gentleman in the audience, he said, "There's a standard beyond us." And if anyone's curious, that doesn't make a standard objective. Like, I want to be very clear at the get-go that just because there's a standard outside of yourself or
Right.
personhood doesn't make it objective. I can give you a classic example of that. The U.S. government. We're based in the United States. Both myself and AAA are based in the United States. In the United States, abortion was legal starting in the 1970s up until very recent, and it's still legal in some states. It's becoming illegal in other states, etc. The U.S. government is deciding whether something is legal or not. Are they deciding whether something is moral or not?
No.
No, of course not. And even if they said it was a good thing, well, not necessarily abortion, but even if they said anything was a good thing, just because the government says so, does that make it objective?
No. Well, no.
Exactly. So just keep that in mind when moving forward through the video, because
Yeah. Mhm.
when you think just because it's outside of yourself doesn't make it objective. Just because a higher authority, like the U.S. government, who you have to pay taxes to or they'll put you in prison, says so. Just keep that in mind when it gets to the God part, because if, you keep with the U.S. government analogy, it's something with a lot of power that can punish you for doing wrong.
Right. Also, I mean, think about this. I'm outside of yourself. Whoever's watching, right? I exist independent of your mind. Can you just make your moral standards off me? Would I make it objective? No. Like that's just dumb for like a bunch of different reasons.
Yeah. So just keep that in mind when we get into the God argument.
One thing I wanted to point out was, so he has the college student he had asked. He said, so morals come from God, right? And then Frank Turek said they come from a standard that is beyond us or transcends us or something. I don't know why he wouldn't just say God.
Right, yeah.
Because that's what you're talking about. But
anyway, just wanted to kind of lay the foundation before we get too deep into the video, because that's the crux of the argument. It's not against Frank Turek, it's against the argument itself.
Doctrines of religions, or like, the Abrahamic religions, for example, and just say, well, from a moral perspective, those aren't exactly very moral. That's what I would say. Like genocide, things like that, and a lot of troubling things. And I'm sure you've probably heard these questions before. But you could argue on a moral level that why you wouldn't believe in something even if it was true, or even if there was a lot of evidence presented to you that it might be true. For example, when you said, I had a lot of atheists come before me and say, would you believe in Christianity if it was true? And they said, no. I think the reason why they would say that is because on a moral level they
So, and this is where he said, he phrased it. He says, would you believe in Christianity if it was true? I mean, if you're saying that something's true, that's a tacit acknowledgement that you believe it. You can't say something's true and then not believe it. That doesn't make any sense. But
I mean, I maybe with the way he's wording it, he's trying to say that you wouldn't necessarily call yourself a Christian, or you wouldn't worship the Christian God.
And that's where I think where he's getting to, but he doesn't say that. So because I just want to point out that being that is immoral, that doesn't make it irrational to believe in him. The God could just be evil. So it's a very different thing. Okay.
It's true. I mean, like, people have worshipped other people that have been very immoral.
Right. I believe Hitler exists. He's immoral. So
and people definitely worshipped him and idolized him. So
yeah.
Disagree with it. So I'm just curious about what would you say.
Well, if an atheist says that I don't believe in the God of the Bible because I think the God of the Bible is immoral, my first statement's going to be, what do you mean by immoral? Because you don't.
Care to answer?
Yeah, I mean, this is very easy to define. So, and what I like to go into, you've heard me talk about morality extensively on this podcast, but when we think about the best way to understand morality is not to go into the epistemology or the ontology, but go into the teleology. I don't know why I was struggling with that word. The teleos, right? The purpose, right? So the reason why we have morals in the first place is because we don't live in a vacuum. Facade doesn't live in a vacuum. I don't live in a vacuum. And we can do acts, and those acts will have consequences that will affect people around us. Right. So if I was in a room with Facade and I had a samurai sword and I started swinging it around, you might say, hey, don't swing that sword. And I'd be like, why not? He'd be like, because you might hit me. Right. So he makes it, he makes a request for me to not do something. Right. What he's concerned about is his well-being. He doesn't want to get hit with the sword. So that is the purpose of it. That's why we have morals, because actions have consequences. There are things that I can do, whether intentionally or not, that can dramatically negatively impact your well-being. Things that could end your well-being. There's things that I can do that could result in your death. Not even just me being intentional about it, but just being stupid. So people have rules to govern my behavior. That is what the purpose of it is. So the standard we use is well-being. It just makes perfect sense. What else would you use? That's what we're all concerned about. So I never understood this. Oh, if there's no God, then there's no morals. I mean, like, no. So you're saying, so if there's no God, there's no reason to care about yourself. There's no reason to care about the people around you. It doesn't make any sense to me. But
So that answers Turk's question, what does an atheist have to do with morals?
mhm.
So as we move forward, just kind of keep how AAA and I, which are both atheists, would look at morals. We would look at the well-being specifically of humanity, but we would expand that to all living creatures. Or all sentient creatures.
You don't have a standard by which to judge the God of the Bible. No objective standard. It's just your subjective opinion. You just don't like the God of the Bible.
Stop. Again. So he said there's no standard to judge the God of the Bible. You can judge God's actions by how it contributes to well-being. So we talked about, if I was in a room with Facade swinging around a samurai sword wildly, it would be immoral because I could hit him. It would also be immoral if God was in a room with Facade swinging a samurai sword. Why? Because it would hurt his well-being. If somehow we were to change the laws of physics and the sword wouldn't affect him in any way, maybe it would just go past him and the matter would just not interact with him. I don't know. It would do this little, I don't know, this ghosting and there was no way to harm him. Then in that case, it wouldn't be immoral because it could not affect well-being. So that is the standard we're using, well-being.
But that's not a moral position. That's just your own subjective opinion. So atheists don't have.
If Facade gets whacked in the head with a samurai sword, it would not be good for Facade's well-being. That's not a matter of opinion. Whacking him in the head with a sword will harm him. That's just a biological fact, not an opinion.
Have a standard by which they can judge the God of the Bible or anybody else. Now, what an atheist could.
I will contribute here to say that, like, a lot of Christians and people, specifically with Abrahamic religions, say something similar. Like, we're in no position to judge God or to examine God's actions or deem his actions as good or bad. And they say that because God is supposed to be the ultimate authority, so whatever God does is good. And I'm not saying necessarily Frank Turek is making that particular argument here. I'm just saying in general that's what you see crop up a lot. And I just wanted to point this out there to anyone watching, Christian, non-Christian, on the fence, just thinking about it. If you apply the same standard to everyone, even if it's your God, then that standard becomes a baseline for everything. So just like in AAA's example, if he's in a room swinging a samurai sword in my direction, or a god is in my room swinging a samurai sword in my direction, I hold no value on which one of them are going to hit me with the samurai sword, because both are going to be negatively impacting to my well-being. It doesn't matter whether it's AAA or a god. And so if you think that, for instance, killing babies is wrong, it doesn't matter if it's Jeffrey Dahmer or God. If killing babies is wrong, it shouldn't matter who the person is that's doing it.
Could say is, okay, let me not be an atheist for a second. Let me just say, if you're saying your God is a good God, why does he do these things in the Old Testament, say? That's a good question for an atheist to ask. Is that the question you're asking?
Something like that. Or like,
I would disagree, just because like an atheist would typically ask the question, like, it's not that I'm not being an atheist, it's just that for the purpose of an argument, let's grant that the God of the Bible exists. It's not to say I'm going to stop being an atheist and all of a sudden believe in your God. It's literally just a positional point to try to get you to examine the actions of the God of the Old Testament.
So, and also, if God himself is the standard, then whether you believe in God or not, no one would have a standard to judge God on. Even if like you're a Christian, what standard could you use to judge God? Because he is the standard. So I'm not sure why the person who's asking that questions, I'm not sure why their position on whether a God exists is relevant. Makes no sense to me. But
like for example, like when you mentioned the Nazis and everything, I was like, well, these people were defined as subhuman. That's why they could kill them.
Right.
But and the Old Testament was like, well, the Canaanites, were, they basically had to be like, massacred on like a crazy amount, because if you like read some of the Old Testament books, like they go like from like city to city killing all the people.
All right, let's take a look
things
at
like
that. I got the gist of it, okay? Is God immoral for killing the Canaanites? This is a
Yes.
question.
No, you just want to say, I agree.
It's immoral because it's not good for Canaanites to be killed. It's not good for the Canaanites.
Common question.
Yeah.
And by the way, you may hear an echo. That's actually in the video, the way that they're recording it. It's not in our end.
Let me just start out by pointing out that if there is no God, why is any so-called Old Testament atrocity wrong? This is a question I asked atheists, to which they respond, if they're honest, they'll say, okay, but it's still a problem for your worldview. The next question is this.
No, the answer is no. Just like we pointed out earlier, like there's a standard. Just like 2 seconds ago when AAA said killing the Canaanites is bad for the Canaanites' well-being. That's it. That's the answer.
Yes. Is God arbitrary, or does he give reasons for judging people in the Old Testament?
God can give all the reasons he wants, just like Jeffrey Dahmer.
Right.
Doesn't make it good. Jeffrey Dahmer ate people because he was hungry.
That's what I was wondering. I was like, why does that matter? Whether he gives reasons for it. I mean, like Hitler gave reasons for the Holocaust. Matter of fact, I mean, it is rare when somebody does something extremely immoral without any reason at all. I mean, you could at least bring it back. They were angry
because I'm a determinist, so that would mean that, like, truly random would have to
right.
be
That's
point,
what I'm saying.
Like,
I mean, this is some quantum fluctuation happened.
Oh,
Shang-Chi. I mean, like, what's going on?
No reason, just happened.
Right.
Just happened. Had no thoughts about it. Didn't do anything beforehand. Literally, quantum fluctuation.
Right. That's what I'm like. There's going to be a reason. But okay, whatever.
Is he arbitrary, or does he say here's why these people need to go? The answer is.
I like how is he arbitrary, or does he give reasons? As if those two things are different, are opposites.
Right.
Like
right. Like your reasons can be arbitrary.
Yeah.
Right.
Is he arbitrary?
Because there was tons of wicked people, but he didn't always wipe them out, right? He didn't always resort to genocide. Right, like the Egyptians, they were wicked too. He didn't resort to genocide, but why is he killing the Canaanites? So there is some arbitrariness going on, even with his reasons. You're right. This is a good point.
They've been doing all sorts of awful things for 400 years, and I've been patient, but now it's Judgment Day. In fact, one of the things the Canaanites were doing is they were sacrificing their babies to the molten hot metal god known as Molech. What they would do is they would heat this metal idol up, then they would put their babies on its hot arms, and the babies would literally sizzle to death. Plutarch, a Greek writer, writes of this, and he says that the drummers in the community, when this ceremony was going on, would drum louder so the parents of the kids being sacrificed wouldn't hear the screams of their own children. Now, on every college campus I go to, an atheist normally says that there is a good God.
So what's weird here is, so he's given his reasons for why God wiped out some of the Canaanites. Now, I don't know if all of them were doing this, but the tactic is strange, isn't it? To stop child sacrifice, you kill everybody. You can't do child sacrifice if there's no children, right? Or parents, or anyone for that matter. You know, Chicago has a huge crime problem, as you're aware. I know a way we could solve it.
Yeah, me too.
Right?
It's called a nuke.
Right. No more Chicago.
Right.
Makes perfect sense, right? This is... I can't believe... Let me be respectful. Okay, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Well, I don't know. It's just odd that, I mean... How could anyone think this is an intelligent argument? This is nonsense. You don't stop. I would argue that he's not really even stopping the evil, because you could use that justification for anything, like the people that Jeffrey Dahmer was killing, right? Surely they were eventually going to go around and do something else immoral at some point. So did he stop it? Did Hitler stop immorality? I mean, this is nonsense. But
I'd also want to point out that Plutarch did make mention of the Carthaginians making sacrifice of children.
Right. You know, I was wondering about that, because I was like, how would he know about what the Canaanites was doing?
Yeah, he said the Carthaginians, so the people of Carthage.
Yeah, but that's not the Canaanites.
No, it's definitely not. And beyond that, it was pretty well accepted that the Carthaginians did indeed sacrifice children until about the 1970s, when it was widely rejected much shortly thereafter that it was never a widespread practice of sacrificing children. Just didn't happen. Not in the way that we know it. I mean, there are instances throughout history of like human sacrifice. Not to go specifically, too deep into the well, but there's a good example of a command of one given in Genesis to Abraham. That's quite literally a human child sacrifice that is commanded by God. And obviously, if you know the story, it doesn't go through. I'm not trying to go there. I'm just saying there are instances of child sacrifice. It just, to our knowledge, hasn't been a widely spread continual practice in any culture throughout history. There are much stranger things that have happened, such as in certain tribal lands where people are eating each other. Cannibalism was much more popular than child sacrifice. Anyway.
God, why doesn't he stop all the evil in the world? Well, here's an instance where God steps in to stop it, and the atheists are complaining about it. Right? I mean,
everybody just laughs. Like, yeah.
Right? Like that was a good point.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, do you understand how you could support, you could support a certain goal while objecting to the way that you get to that goal, right? Just like with Chicago, right? We want to stop crime in Chicago, but it's not a contradiction to say I would be opposed to entirely wiping out everyone in Chicago to prevent crime.
If you're a Christian and you believe the Bible, you know that you're familiar with the passage that all have sinned, right? Every human ever. So every one of the 6 million Jews that were killed in the Holocaust had sinned before they died, right? That's just facts, according to the Bible. What you could say, using this argument, is that by killing those people in the Holocaust, you're preventing them from future sin, or you're charging them with the sin that they have committed and killing them.
Right.
There's
And
no difference.
how can you as a Christian condemn Hitler? You want people to stop sinning. Well, that's what he was doing. He
Yeah.
was stopping people from sinning.
Yep, sure did.
You know?
Because every one of those were
Hypocrite
sinners.
Christians.
Why complain that God doesn't stop evil, but then complain when he does? Now, what they
The answer is because the method in which a all-powerful God chooses seems to be sometimes, if not most of the time, worse than the problem.
Right.
Like, oh, there's people being wicked, generically wicked. What should we do? Flood the whole earth. Kill everybody but 9 people.
Right.
Oh, these people over here are sacrificing babies once a year. You know what you should do? Murder everyone in the tribe. Kill them all. Women, children, everybody. And if you don't, I'm going to punish you. It's like you go into the doctor for a toothache, and instead he shoots you in the head and says, no more problems.
Right. That toothache went away.
Toothache did go away, but geez, guys.
Right.
That's why we can complain. If you're an all-powerful God, surely there's a better method to stop child sacrifice. Make them all barren. Problem solved.
Mm-hmm.
They can no longer sacrifice children.
Oh, I got one. Give them the gospel.
Oh, look at that.
Hey, show up. Hey, guys, don't do that anymore.
God,
Jesus.
I exist. I'm real. Don't do that or you'll burn in hell.
Right. Just show up. Hey. Too easy. But
they will say is, okay, God should have stopped the parents from doing this, but why did he have to wipe out all the culture, you know, the women, the children, because it does seem to say, hey, wipe everybody out, right? There are 2 views on this. One is put forth by Paul Copan, a scholar down at Palm Beach University, I think it is. And he's wrote a book
I think he meant Pensacola.
called Is God a Moral Monster? And he notes that if you look at the passages closely, like Deuteronomy 7, it'll say wipe everybody out. And then right after that it'll say, and then don't intermarry with them. You guys see a problem with this? How could you intermarry with a group you just wiped out? You couldn't. Copan points out that in the...
Can you stop it right here?
Yeah.
So, this is odd, right? He says, don't intermarry with people that you just wiped out. So this is based on the idea that the Bible presents one coherent message with no contradictions. The Bible does stuff like this all the time, right? It'll give instructions that kind of don't really make any sense. So
not only that, but I will also point out that there are different rules for different people that get genocided.
yeah,
And I mean, when I say that, I mean, like, quite literally, there are examples throughout the Old Testament where in certain situations, people are commanded to go in and kill everybody but the unmarried women and the children. And then there are examples in which you're supposed to go in and kill everyone, including infants and babies. And if you do not, then God's wrath will come upon you because you did not carry out his direct orders. Mm-hmm. There are other instances in which it just says, go and take over the land, and whoever, prisoners of war or whatever, just like normal tactics. But like in certain examples, you're given specific rules. And in Deuteronomy, they're not talking about the Amalekites. They're not talking about the Canaanites, because those don't come until Judges, 1 Samuel, Daniel, etc. Like, these are much later in historical context. So this is just after the Exodus of Egypt, because it's found in Deuteronomy. Nonetheless, that's what we're talking about.
In the ancient Near East culture, this was very common to use hyperbolic language to say, annihilate these people, when it really all it meant was defeat them, push them out of the land. Okay?
I don't know where he got that from. Just, I genuinely think he's just pulling it out of nowhere.
I think so too. Matter of fact, because if you, I was waiting. Go ahead.
Go ahead.
I was gonna say I was waiting to get up to the certain point because I have the passage right in front of me. Because he was gonna. So what he's gonna suggest is that when God told him to go completely annihilate them, he just meant defeat them. We'll wait till he gets to that part before I read this passage.
Yeah, and I just want to point out, if you've read like anything from Egyptian history, which is very extensive, and I would say it's the Near East, and you've read Mesopotamian history, even in folly, and I say that in like the sense of the fables, right? It doesn't often get hyperbolic unless you're talking about something that's supposed to be hyperbolic. And when I say that, I mean, like, if you read things like what the Egyptians said, they would be hyperbolic when they were talking about how good or how great their pharaoh was. But they wouldn't be hyperbolic when they described their siege upon a land. They would say, these are the number of men that died. These are the number of men we killed. Because they're writing a historical record. There was an intention to be hyperbolic.
Right.
Like, you don't really start seeing hyperbole in, like, battles until you get a little more, modern. like, you'll see a lot of that in more modern culture, and then as battles became more of a, we can get the word around quicker, sure. But when you're writing it down because you might be the only person that can, you typically just write down the facts.
And we do that in sports today. We annihilated you. Really? They're gone? The other team's gone? No. It's an exaggeration, all right? Now, even if Copan is wrong about that, even if these are literal commands.
So, now he said, so pretty much he was saying that when God was telling him to wipe everybody out, he was just saying, like, just defeat them. But if you read the text in Deuteronomy, it distinguishes defeat from genocide. And so it says, and when the Lord God gives them over to you and you defeat them, right? That's the conquering part. Then you must devout them to complete destruction. There's the genocide. You defeat them. It says it, defeat them. Then you must devout them to complete destruction. So there it is. The text itself just entirely debunks that argument.
Note this. Is God committing murder by ending lives on earth? No, why not? He's God, right? He's God. He gives life. He can take.
So there's your moral subjectivity, right? It's not murder when God does it. So the act isn't wrong on its face. It's determined by who's committing the act, which makes it subjective. When we're talking about objective morality, you have to look at the act itself, and it needs to be entirely independent from who's committing it. So if I kill someone, you can say that's immoral because killing is immoral. It doesn't mean you don't even need to specify who did it. That's how an objective moral system will work. If you say it's not immoral when I do it, but it's moral, but it's immoral when you do it, then now it's subjective because it's based on the subject, on who's committing the act. So there's your big flaw. That's not moral objectivity.
And just to cut it off at the pass, if anybody's watching and curious, when AAA says something like killing is wrong and it doesn't matter who's doing it, that even goes into things like acts of war. So if you go and watch our episode, we just did an episode about justified immorality. And in self-defense, you may end up killing someone to save your own life. But killing someone is still bad for that person's well-being. It's still immoral. But it's a justified immorality because you're committing the act in preservation of your own self. And with that in mind, that would cover things like war, it would cover things like self-defense, etc. It's a justified immorality because someone's invading your house, your property, your space, etc. Someone's threatening your family, your life, even a stranger, and you take a life. It's immoral, but it's justified. So when we say that killing someone's always wrong, which he's using the term murder here, and most Christians I know would say that God cannot murder anyone. God can kill people, but God can't murder. And so let's use the term kill. And somebody pointed out in one of the videos we made, I used the term murder. And then I corrected myself and used the word kill later. I even commented on the video saying I corrected myself. But I'm fine with using the word kill all the time. Killing another person is always immoral. Problem solved.
Take life. He can take life anytime he wants. In fact, if Christianity's true, people don't really die, they just change locations, right? They go from this life to the next life, and God can do that whenever he wants. In fact...
Stop. Okay, so if that's the case, that if Christianity is true, that you don't really die, you just go to another place, why is killing wrong at all? Just, you can't really do it. But all I can do is just like
make you change location.
Right. Yeah, I just stamp your metaphysical passport. I come over and shoot you in the head. Oh, you just change places. You know, I would argue honestly that would still be immoral. Maybe I don't want to go to wherever I'm going to go. But also, I mean, at this point, why even if this is your argument and you're opposed to an abortion, why? Because you're not killing a baby. You're just sending him to Jesus. You should be encouraging abortions.
God has the right to usher people into the next life, whether they are 2 years old or 82 years old, because people never die, they just change locations. So while it's not fair...
People never die, they just change locations.
Right. Yeah, so you can't do it at all. You can't even kill somebody.
It's not possible to kill someone else, according to Frank Turek's
so now it's just
argument.
Right. So now it's just incoherent. Yeah, you can't even say killing is wrong. It's not even possible.
Right, all you did was make them change location.
Right.
For us to take innocent life, God can do it anytime he wants. Also,
hold on, stop. Whoa, wait a minute. Okay, so what? You just said so people don't die, they just change places. But now you're saying, but it's not okay for us to take innocent life. Well, we can't take life. All we can do is just change the location of it. So, like, what do you want to say here? Like, what's going on? Well, this is a total contradiction. And now he's not even agreeing with himself.
Another note about this. I was at the University of Central Oklahoma. You can see this on YouTube. That's one of the questions. There was a young lady who asked a question, and she said, I can't believe in a God who would do this kind of thing. And so I said, can I ask you a question?
And by the way, if hypothetically, as an atheist, the God of the Bible were proven true beyond reasonable doubt to me, I would believe that God exists. I would not worship the God because of these acts. It's not that I wouldn't believe that it existed. I believe Hitler existed. However, I don't worship Hitler, nor do I give him louder praise because I don't think he is worthy of it. And if the God of the Bible exists and he commanded these atrocities in the Old Testament as your Bible says he does, I don't think he's worthy of your or my praise either.
Are you pro-abortion or pro-life? She said, oh, I'm pro-abortion. I said, let me ask you a question about that. Why is it that when God plays God in the Old Testament, when he chooses who lives and who dies, he's immoral? But when you...
God does not choose who lives and who dies because no one dies. They just get sent to another location.
It's true.
Mhm.
And I guess the term playing God means that you're just changing people's location.
Right.
You play God here on earth, and you decide who lives and who dies through abortion. That's a
People can't die.
moral right. You see, people claim God can't be God, but they can. That's just blatantly inconsistent. Finally, I also point out.
Stop it. He said that's blatantly inconsistent. Oh man, that's hilarious. Okay, so because Christianity is true, people can't die. Also, God gets to choose who lives and who dies, despite the fact that they can't die.
They just
And
change location.
right, yeah, because they
And
just changed
humans
location.
can play God by agreeing with a woman's right to choose.
Right,
But what they're choosing is to send someone to a different location because they can't die.
right,
But only God can choose to do that.
right.
Simple.
This is bizarre.
Everybody's keeping up, I'm sure.
Right.
Out that the Old Testament theocracy was unique and temporary. It was not the ideal for all time, but a means to a promised new covenant.
I'm going to disagree here. And I could be wrong because it's been a while since I've studied Saul and David. But precursor to Saul and David and, Moses and the Exodus of Egypt, God fully intended a theocracy. It wasn't until the time of Saul when Israel got its first king. And they chose Saul, and that couldn't be David, even though he was a quote-unquote man after God's own heart. But Saul was chosen to be king because Israel complained so much.
You're right. They wanted to be like the other nations.
The other lands had a king and they did not. And so I genuinely think, and I could be mistaken, please correct me in the comments if I'm wrong. I'm be happy to go and read your research on it. But I genuinely think the plan of God was to indeed be a theocracy. It wasn't until Israel complained.
1 Samuel 8, verses 10 through 22. So it explains all of that. Like he's giving a warning about what's going to happen if you get a king, and because God wanted to be the king.
Yeah, you see, I didn't think this was correct when I heard it the first time. It struck a red flag that popped up in my head. I was almost certain, but I was welcome to be corrected. But where did you say it was? 1 Samuel chapter 8?
Yeah,
so
1 Samuel chapter 8, verses 10 through 22.
The Bible clearly says that,
unless you want to say, oh, but no, God's sovereign, and he enticed Israel to ask for a king. That's that.
Hang on, I'm going to take time to
4D
read
test.
this comment because it's long. Everyone is mocking Jesus now, but when Judgment Day comes, that will be a different story. Rather, you believe God or not. I don't think that was the right word there. You'll face judgment. The ones who die in Christ will also be judged, but will be judged in Jesus and will be forgiven. Being judged outside of Jesus, you'll be judged separate and will be separated from God and thrown into hell. Temporary holding spot until the white throne judgment and cast into the lake of fire. Warning you now, your choice. Robert, I'd like to invite you on the show because I find some very interesting biblical contradictions in some of the things you just said. One of the things being that it's your choice. I don't think you have one. And if you think you have a choice and whether you get to go to heaven or hell, let's have a discussion about it. Come on the show. Because I disagree. I don't think the Bible gives you any indication that you get a choice. I don't think that you have a choice, according to the biblical worldview. And I don't think you have a choice because I don't think humans have free will. So if you disagree with any of that, let's come on the show. Email us and we'll gladly have you on as a guest. Today we're just doing a video review, but usually every week when we can, we get a guest on to have a discussion. So, Robert, I appreciate your comment. I disagree with some of the things you said. However, if you'd like to come and further discuss those, and you think you can make an articulated argument as to why those things are true or why you believe them, and you'd like to have a discussion, email us, nowthat'sdebatableStream@gmail.com, and let us know that you want to come on the show. We'll get you scheduled. You can come on through. We'll have a discussion about it. You can tell your side of the story, and you can kind of ask questions, and I will be glad to do the same because I disagree with so many of the things that you said. I don't believe that we get that. Live reaction, Facade, get with the time. Yeah, that is my live reaction to this, yeah. So, sorry, I'm not all the way up to the times, but we're still working on it. Anyway, we'll continue with the video. There's only about 30 seconds left, so.
Covenant. These commands were very specific commands at a very specific time to get the promised people in the
subjectivity.
Ooh. Yeah. Not only subjectivity, but also moral relativism, because it's not just changing with the person, but it's changing with time.
Yeah.
Bro, so this is
a
like
double whammy.
Yeah.
the promised land to bring forth the promised Messiah to save the world. Whether they're literal or whether they're exaggerations, either way, God has the right to do it.
Either way.
Why?
God has the right to do it.
I don't understand. What is it about making something gives you the right to do whatever you want with that thing? Like, so oftentimes, like, people, I'll hear skeptics counter this argument with, well, does that mean I can just do whatever I want with my own child? And then the Christian, they'll say, well, no, you didn't make your child. You didn't create it from, you didn't, what's it called? Like ex nihilo, create out of nothing, you know? So it's different. So, but let's say I could. Let's say I could create a baby from scratch. Would I now have the moral? Could I morally rape a baby that I created from scratch? Just think about that. Because if you're saying you can do whatever you want with something that you made, that's what you're saying. It would include that. If you can say that, then I guess we just fundamentally disagree on what morals are. But I don't think most people would say that you could rape something that you just created from scratch, especially that thing becomes sentient, able to become self-aware and distinguish itself from its environment. That is just it's just an odd thing to say, I think. Was that the end of the video?
That was the end of the video. I just changed the screen so it has most of Frank Turek's name there, so it's not just the Facebook logo. But that was the end of the video. That was the end of it. So this is Frank Turek's argument against God being immoral. And our response isn't to like Frank Turek himself necessarily, it's to the argument he presents. And if you use this argument and you think you can do better, or you think we got something wrong, or you disagree with something that we said, let us know. Comment. Come on the show. We can talk about it. We can have a discussion. If you're a Christian, or if you're an atheist, or if you're whatever, and you have differing opinions than the ones we just discussed, you're more than welcome to come on the show and talk about it. I think, and it's a long shot, but we potentially might get Frank Turek on the show, and if we do, we can have this discussion live and see his reaction and see how he responds. I don't know that we will, but if we do, we're going to promote the heck out of that because Frank Turek's pretty popular, and we'd love for our channel to grow like that. But was there anything else you wanted to mention before we signed off, or anything else you wanted to tackle?
No,
for sure.
I wanted to thank people for subscribing to our channel. I think we got, like, since last week, we gained like 5 to 6 new subscribers. And so, man, we appreciate every subscriber we get. We appreciate every view we get. So Thanks for showing our content love. Also, if there's a debate that you want to see happen on this channel, a specific topic, let us know. And if you have someone in mind that you want to see on the show, if you have a way to contact them, that'd be awesome. Introduce us, put it on his email. You can find our email in the about page of this YouTube channel, and introduce us. We'll talk to anybody.
Monitored. Yeah, it's
So,
regularly monitored. We try to respond to the emails that we get there. So whether it's a topic suggestion or a person suggestion, or you want to come on the show and have a discussion, it doesn't have to be Christian. It doesn't have to be morals. It doesn't have to be anything like that. Literally anything you want to come on to discuss, we are more than welcome to have you on the show. So if you're finding yourself in disagreement with us, or if you find yourself defending the other person, or if you find yourself agreeing with a lot of what we say, but you're curious how we got there, I mean, we're always open for a good discussion. So, Punch Drinker said live reactions to religious content could be a play. We could just go through and do like straight up live reactions to like some of the debates and religious stuff that we've seen. So if we get to a week where we don't have a guest lined up, we may do that as an episode. So thanks for the suggestion.
yeah.
When is the episode? It's tomorrow?
Yes.
Tomorrow.
Yeah. So we're going to have
tomorrow?
somebody from Universal Life Church on tomorrow. And so I'm not sure what his positions are. He had randomly sent me a Facebook request today, and I still saw his page, and I was like, oh, this is interesting. So wanted to get him on the show, and he obliged. So
All right, so tomorrow, tune in. We'll see you guys then, and we'll be back then. Hope you guys have a wonderful day, and we'll see you then.